Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you again. As you know, I had a short trip to Korea last week, so I was not here last Sunday. So I hope that you had a really wonderful service last Sunday and a great time with God, right? So, as you know, I have been to Korea a very short trip, 1 week. It was not planned, but I've been to Cuba and Central Asia this year, so I was not planning to have another international trip. But I heard from my sister that my mother was very sick in this spring, and my sister in Canada, she was planning to visit my mother, and she said maybe we should all gather together. So I just joined the 1 week to see my mother. She's okay, though she's very weak. So this trip, when I went to her house, I thought I'm gonna help my mom to clean up her house. Because she's old and we don't know how long she will live longer. And it's very common that older people, they too much stuff, right? So I clean her house a lot this time during 1 week. All the books and all the stuffs, and I throw them away. And I helped her to clean her house. And while I was throwing away all her stuff, I found that some of my stuff. 20 years ago, when I left Korea, I still left some of my stuff. And there are some items, like my candle stand collection. I have like 20, 30 candle stand that I had a collection when I was young. So it was still in my house. And my actually wedding album was in there, so I brought it back. And surprisingly, I found a bundle of love letters that I wrote it 25 years ago while I was dating with Hannah. I was, where the these things came out, and was my mom reading all of these after 10 years? I was kind of scared, and I opened it as basically the letter that I sent to Hannah for 5 months when I was international trip. When I was a Navy, I was in the cruise training the whole world. So we were away, we were dating, but we were away at that time. So every country in the middle of the ocean, I wrote a love letter. Have you ever done it? Paul, did you write a lot of love letters to you? No? Email, text. But like my generation, we wrote a love letters. Like it was like 20, 30 love letters, and there was a Hannah's journey there. So interesting. That's never I read it. So I was reading the memories 25 years ago, and then I was feeling like so embarrassed. Oh my gosh, did I say that? The moon is so beautiful, like your face, and all the kinds of things that you're supposed to write, the love letter, right? And there's how much I loved her. There was like, oh my God, so embarrassing now. How could I say such a thing, and how could she say such a thing? I'm sure that we loved each other at that time, right? So the kinds of letter I read it, and because this trip I went by myself, while I was reading it in my room, I thought, so what happened? 22 years later, 25 years later, what happened between Hannah and I? Do we still love as much we loved at that time? All the beautiful word that I can give you my life, you're my world, and so many things that I wrote it. Do I still keep it? I asked myself, do I still love my wife with the love that I loved when I was 20s, right? So that's the one thing happened during this short trip. The other one, whenever I visit Korea, I always visit my home church. My home church in Korea, it looks like that. The photo in the left side, it was how a church looked when I was attending church, when I was a youth in college. And now this is how the church looked like. They renovated many times. So it looked very different. But still, whenever I visit Korea, I visit my home church. Does everybody have your home church? What's the definition of home church? The church you attended when you were young? What if you moved a couple times and you attended a couple or a few different churches? What is a home church? To me, home church is a church where I met Jesus first time. My first love with Jesus. All the memories, how much I loved him, how I met him, then all the first love with Jesus. That is my home church. So this is a church that I met Jesus. When I was a youth, during this church retreat, I met Jesus Christ. And about 5 and 6 years, senior to all the way college, I went to this church every day, every night in the middle of the night, before I go home from school, from college, when I was in library, and then before I go home, I always stop by that church. Sometimes the door was closed, so I had to go over the wall, but I always went to the church. Sometimes I go into the sanctuary. When sanctuary was locked, I was standing outside the church garden. Just my holy moment. I prayed, I talked with God every day for 5 or 6 years. That's all my memory of a first church. Do you have a home church in your heart? Is there anybody here that my home church is a new creation? Which means I met Jesus here. So my first love with Jesus is all the memories here. I hope that some of you, it's been only 6 years our church, but I hope that some of you say, this is my home church. And as our children and youth grow, I hope that they say, this is my home church. Not just the church that I grow, but church through which, where I met Jesus Christ. And I experienced my first love. So that's my church. So even if the church was renovated, when I go that location, I still remember every single night that I spent a time with Jesus. It was fantastic. It was like a dating. It's like first love. And I still remember one night when I was in college, I just went to the church garden, and I was praying, and the moonlight was yellow, and it was very beautiful. And all of a sudden, I just said, Jesus, I love you. Lord, I love you. I truly love you. I love you so much, Jesus. I just started saying like this, just confession, my love. And it lasted few hours. I believe I said it more than 1,000 times. Just not long prayer, but just I repeat the same thing. Jesus, I love you. I love you so much. You are everything to me. I love you. So I was like, just praying like that for like hours, I remember, because again, it was my first love. Jesus was everything to me. He was so precious, and loving with him is the most important thing to me at that time in my life. So this trip, again, this short trip during the week, I went to this church when nobody was there. I went to the early morning and morning prayer. And I prayed again the same sanctuary that I was praying when I was young. And the memory came up again, and I asked myself, so, do you still love him? Do you still love Jesus with the same love that you loved him when you were young? Can you still confess 1,000 times at the one spot that I love you, I love you, I love you, without being tired? Can you just say, because that was my emotion at that time, right? Do you still love Jesus that much? So during this trip, there was two big challenges to me. Do I still love Hannah with the same love that I loved after 25 years? Do I still love Jesus with the same love that I loved him 30 years ago? That was a big question during this trip. So I want to share the passage in John chapter 21, because John chapter 21, it's a love letter. It's a love letter between Jesus and Peter. You know, I shared this passage many times because I really love John chapter 21. Book of John has a total 21 chapters, and this is the last chapter. And people say maybe this chapter is not that necessary because book of John is over at the end of chapter 20. So if you see at the end of chapter 20, the last two verses, it sounds like there's a conclusion, the end of a book. Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have a life in his name, period. It's a conclusion. The end of the book of John, chapter 20, verse 30 and 31, the book already concludes the reason I wrote this book. The most important thing about this book of John, the conclusion of the book of John, summary of the book of John, Jesus is Christ, and you should know this. That's the end of the book. And strangely, there's one more chapter, John chapter 21. And do you know the content of John chapter 21? Most important thing in the John chapter 21? It's about Jesus visiting Peter and disciples again. An important conversation that Jesus asked Peter. Peter, the Simon, son of John, son of Jonah, do you truly love me? Jesus asked 3 times. right? Do you remember this conversation? Very famous passage, right? John chapter 21, that Jesus asked these three questions. And the 21:15, the first question, he repeats the same question three times, but 21:15 it says, when they had finished eating the breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah. So he's calling him officially, not just Peter, Simon, but Jesus now truly bring up like some official comment. Simon, son of Jonah, I'm telling you, I hope you be very sure, do you truly love me more than these? Maybe Jesus just could say, do you love me, right? But do you see the emphasis that he said, do you truly love me? And even that was not enough. He said, more than these people, more than anything. You know, usually we don't like the comparison. Comparison is not good. If you compare yourself with somebody, I'm richer than person, I'm smarter than person, I'm more beautiful than person, and then I'm more intelligent than person. It's not good, right? Comparison, just if other people better than you, you're jealous, and if you better than other people, you're proud of yourself too much. So generally, comparison is bad. Don't compare yourself with anybody or any situation. But about love, you should compare. The characteristic of love, there should be comparison. When a woman asked the man, do you love me? Even if she said a very short sentence, do you love me? There is a next thing, even if she said, right? Do you love me more than any woman in this world? Right? That's a love. You know why I'm reading this passage? At last, I found the difference between like and love. Because I always wondered, when should I say I like you? When should I say I love you? Maybe if I like somebody too much, then should I say love? But what's the level too much, right? Do I love you? Right? Or if I love something like I like pizza, right? Or should I say I love pizza? What's the difference between like and love? And according to this passage, I think Jesus' definition, when you say love, there's implication. You need to imply that I love this. Then next thing is more than anything. That's a love. So you know our culture, we say love too often. I love you, I love my brother, I love my sister, I love my church brothers and sisters. It's okay, we say love because it's more intimate relationship. But when you say true love, you mean that I love this person more than anybody. Especially in the wedding ceremony, right? When you say, I love this person, I love this man, you mean, I love this man more than any man in the world. And also you say, this man, I love this man more than my love of all the men. Or I like this woman, that woman, and I love many women. But when I say I love this woman more than all the women in the world. That's your confession. So when you ask, do you love me? You are asking, do you really, truly love me? And do you love me more than anybody? That's the implication. That means love, true love. So Jesus is asking that love. Peter, I know you love me. I know you like me. I know you followed me 3 years. I know these are the whole crowd and audience and other disciples who loved me. But I want to check this. Do you truly love me more than these people or more than anything in your life? How many of you in this different definition do you love Jesus? Maybe you can say, I love my husband, I love my wife, and you many, right? This woman is more important than any woman in the world. And when you say, I love my children, among the millions of thousands of children in the world, this child I love more than any children, right? So when you say, Jesus, I love you, do you really mean that I love you more than my husband, more than my wife, more than my children, more than my money or sports or car or whatever, more than anything, anybody in the world, I love you? Do you mean it? That's Jesus' question. Peter, do you truly love me more than this, more than anything? What do you think? Did Peter love Jesus more than this, more than anybody? I think he did. So he answered, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. He has a confidence. He's not just like, I love you. He said, you know that. I believe you know that. I believe you should know that. Right? And actually, Peter loved Jesus more than any disciples. If you remember what Peter has done throughout the gospel, right? He followed Jesus, left out everything, leaving everything behind. He followed Jesus. Once, he walked on the water. And when Jesus asked, who do you think I am? Peter is the only one, who said true identity. You are the Christ, Son of the living God. When a lot of Jesus followers, apostles, disciples, they deserted Jesus Christ, when they left Jesus Christ, Peter is the one who said, there is the word of life in you. Where shall I go? I will stay with you. Right? When Jesus was arrested, he was the only one who drew out his sword to fight against the soldier. Nobody could do it. When Jesus was arrested and dragged to the court, he was the only one who followed him. No other disciples. In fact, all the things that 11 apostles has done, that's less than what one apostle, what Peter has done. If you just see the Bible description throughout the all Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, what Peter has done, the description of what he has done was more than not just one disciple, not more than John, but more than what 11 disciples, 11 apostles has done. Peter surely loved Jesus. He made a mistake. He denied Jesus 3 times. But he had to do it because he loved him so much, because he was the last person who were following Jesus when Jesus was arrested. Still, that shouldn't challenge his love. He loved Jesus more than any other apostles. And while everybody left him, he was still following him. So Peter had a confidence. Yes, Lord. More than John, more than Matthew, more than Bartholomew, more than Nicodemus, I love you more than anybody. I know that. You know that. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And problem was, Jesus was not convinced. He asked the second time, Simon Peter, do you truly love me? And third time, Jesus said, do you truly love me? So scripture said, John chapter 21:17, about the third time when Jesus said to Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Now, Peter was hurt. Peter was hurt. Why? Because he knew that his love was doubted. Jesus was doubting his love. And he was hurt. You don't know that I love you, so you ask me the same question 3 times? People interpret it, maybe Jesus asked the same question 3 times because Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus gave a chance to Peter to say that he loved Jesus 3 times. Maybe that's one interpretation. But I think there's a more deeper meaning here. Jesus, when he asked the 3 times Peter, do you truly love me? He really wanted to know. He wanted to check, do you truly love me? And Peter said, yes, I love you. Peter said like this, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And when Peter said, you know all things, he was talking about all things. During last 3 years, as I just described, there's so many things happen. And none of the disciples, none of Jesus' followers liked Peter. And Peter said, you know that. All the things like 3 years, how I loved you, how I jumped in the water, how I walked on the water, how I followed you, how I confessed who you are, and how I stayed with you. I did everything, and Bible says so. Book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, you know all things. He was talking about all things which happened already. But Jesus' point was not how Peter loved Jesus. Because Jesus did not ask, do you truly love me? Should I remember how you loved me? He didn't say that. When he asked, do you love me? Peter said, you know all things how I loved you in the past. Now, Jesus' love is about present and future. That's the second thing about love. Love is supposed not be past. You know that, right? If you say, hey, once I loved you, what does that mean? I loved you so much at that time. What does that mean? You're not loving that person anymore that much. If you say love in the past form, that's not love. When you say love, I love you, that means you have loved that person in the past, and you love right now, and more importantly, you say, I will love you rest of my life. My love will not be changed. That is love. right? If you think that maybe 5 years later, 10 years later, I might not love you, then you should not say, I love you. Only when you are very sure, with a strong command, I love you. Truly, more than anything than in this world, more than anybody in this world, and I have loved you. I love you right now with 100%, 200%, and this is my commitment. I will never stop loving you. My love will not be changed. I love you. That is what it means. Do you truly love me? Was Peter loving Jesus Christ at that time? Again, Peter had loved Jesus for 3 years, but what was he doing when Jesus visited him? You know, to understand this conversation, you really need to see what's going on in whole chapter 21. So if you see the chapter 21, how this story started, it says like this. Chapter 21, verse 1, Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. It happened this way. Afterward means after all these things happened, after Jesus' ministry, after his death, after his resurrection, after all the testimony of resurrection, afterward. Now Jesus visited Peter again. Our problem is not once we didn't love Jesus Christ. You all love Jesus Christ, right? Isn't that the reason that why you're here? You met him once in your life. At that time, your love was like a fire and furnace, and you truly loved him so much. And you loved your wife, you loved your husband, you loved your boyfriend and girlfriend so much truly at that time. The problem is, afterward, next to 20 years, 30 years later, what happened to you in your heart? What happened in your relationship to that person? Afterward, Jesus visited Peter. What was Peter doing? What was Peter doing in chapter 21? He says, I'm going to fish. Simon Peter told the other disciples, and they said, well, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. He was fishing. In John chapter 21, afterward, after Jesus' death and resurrection, after everything happened, what Peter was doing is he was fishing. What was he doing when he met Jesus Christ first time? Fishing. He was a fisherman. He was a fisherman, so Jesus visited him, and he brought him out. Says, from now on, you will fish the man, not fish the fish. And come out, follow me. That was 3 years ago. And afterward, all this time, Peter was doing the same thing. He was still not fishing the man. He was fishing fish. He was fishing. So Jesus had to visit him again. Again, you loved Jesus so much. You loved your spouse so much. But now, what are you doing? Are you showing your love in your life? Didn't you just go back your life? Maybe when you were young, your phone, there was a Bible verse there. Your hands, there were a Bible verse there. And you read the Bible, you carried the Bible everywhere. You confessed that I love Jesus. You praised every worship. And so many times, Jesus, I love you. Every retreat, you pour your heart. I love you so much. Where is that love now? What are you doing? Didn't you just go back? Just life, your family, your job, your work? That's what happened to Peter. He just went back to fishing. So Jesus now called, Simon, the son of Jonah, Peter, do you truly love me more than this? So simply, do you love me? Then what are you doing here? Why are you staying where you were? Didn't you live with me this journey? Why you were stay there? Why did you go back where you were? Why you just went back to your life? Didn't I show you vision? Didn't I show you dream? Didn't I share something great about your life? That where are you? What are you doing? You know, when Peter said, I love you during 3 years, maybe his expectation was wrong. Peter thought, if I love you, then maybe that when you're in the glory, when you restore the Israel, I'll be right side of you in the heaven in your throne. On your throne, the right side, I'll be with you, I'll be glorious. Maybe that was his expectation. And maybe when you said to our wife and husband or our boyfriend or girlfriend or anybody, when you say, I love you, We had a dream. This woman will be a fancy woman, will make my life happy. Every good thing will happen in my life because of this person. But you know, that was not life. So one day I saw Hannah on the bed. And, who is this woman? Who the heck is this woman? And we're so different. The background was different, our education different, our culture is different. How could I end up living with this woman, having 3 children, live like this? You know, once in a while we think that way, though we never said. And next moment the love will come out again, feel about her. But so once in a while we think, is this the right person that I really said, I give whole my life to you? Is this person? Peter loved Jesus with the wrong expectation. And he lived in the past. When that expectation did not reach, did not make, he lived differently. Now Jesus said truth. Hey, Simon Peter, I will tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. When you were younger, when you loved me last 3 years with your own will, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. You did what you wanted. You loved the way that you wanted to love. You expected what you wanted. That was when you were youth. But now, when you are old, if you truly love me, if you decide to walk with me, if you decide to follow me, if you decide to love me, if you decide to feed my lambs next to 30 years, you will stretch out your hands. Someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want it to go. That is a life. After you love this person so much, your life, your love will be full of pain and suffering. After you decide to love me so much, your life will not be like walking on the rose field. Suffering. Sometimes you need to take over your cross. You walk with your cross. You will go through the storm and suffering and difficulties of a life. Are you ready to do it? Do you truly love me? And do you believe me that I will eventually lead you to the true eternal peace and true love? But before that, some people will persecute you. People will give you a hard time. But are you ready to go with me? While you are feeding my lamb, to show that your true love, it won't be easy. But do you truly love me more than anybody? This is a Jesus love letter sending to Peter, who once loved Jesus so much, who had a confidence, you know that, I know that, this world know that, I love you more than anybody, I'm the one who loves you. To this Peter, now just sending this letter, do you truly, more than anything in your life, so more than your wife, more than your husband, more than your children, more than your money, more than your job, more than your hobby or sports, do you love me? And will you love me next to 20, 30, 40 years until you die? And during that 30 years, you'll be disappointed. You will experience failure. People will give you a hard time because you believe me. And your life will be maybe full of suffering on the cross or thorns. But do you love me truly? And Peter said, yes, Lord. And there were a lot of failures even after this moment. If you read the book of Acts, Peter failed many times. But eventually, as we know, he died on the cross, upside down, ended his life, showing his true love. Next 30, 50 years, Peter proved his love. And for that moment, Jesus visited Peter in John chapter 21. Jesus might visit you again. I know all of you had some fantastic moment of love with Jesus Christ. The first moment you met Him. First moment the mystery of God come into you. First moment the mystery of Holy Spirit came into you, visit you. So it overwhelmed you. And you said, I love you. From now on, I believe in you, God. You're the most important one. I worship only you. And you are in my heart. There was a moment when you were young, you confessed. Afterward, it's been 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. And Jesus want to ask again, do you still love me truly? And will you love me truly? Love is the most important thing in our life. Love is everything. I want us know what love is, and I want us love. Let's pray.